From the high banks of Talladega Superspeedway here in Talladega, Alabama, we welcome you to the second race of the season for the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series. Getting you ready for 57 laps here tonight in the Blame Shelley Insurance 150. Last week, we ended up seeing them three wide coming to the start-finish line at Daytona. What will we see here today, especially with the fact that that start-finish line is down in the center of the tri-oval and turn one? I'm Seth Cole, alongside of Anthony McCurry. And Anthony, obviously, we know Talladega a lot more spacious than Daytona. Usually three wide most of the time at Daytona, but they could take it four wide here. What are you expecting to see here today? Do we see those four wide moves? And, do we see a period of this race with it being 57 laps of drivers just kind of taking it a little bit easy, trying to preserve their stuff?
Well, Talladega has been known for 3 and 4 wide racing all the way around. Every time we come here, it doesn't matter what league we run, and you have that extra line that you can run much wider. It's also the longest super speedway that most drivers go to, so we'll get to see them really get the stretch of their legs. And I do think that we might see a period where these drivers get into a bit of a run, maybe single file, double file, just kind of ride out these laps a little bit. You don't want to use up your car too early. And of course, with the start finish line being so much further down the front straightaway than it is at most other super speedways, we always get that little few extra meters worth of entertainment before we get to see a finish. And we've seen four wide finishes at Talladega before, so it's not really out of the question to see one here tonight.
Certainly is not. Jason Gracias 2 for 2 in capturing the pole position here in the first 2 weeks. Of course, last week went coast to coast, picking up the season opener at Daytona. We'll look to see if he's going to be able to do the same here today. And he'll be alongside of Cam Caldwell. That is your top two in the point stands coming to this race as well. Obviously, Gracias, your points leader with having the victory, but Caldwell, who is a total of 15 points back, reaped in 17 bonus points last week. And that was because he ended up picking up the most spots from his starting position to his finishing position. He also had the fastest lap in the race. That's a total of 15 points in bonus points right there that he was able to get. It kind of puts the pressure on some of these guys to perform well here as well, because it's not just the points they get for their finishing results. There are a lot of bonus points out there available as well. So with moves that are being made, positions gained and lost 3, 4, 5 different times in the course of a lap, these drivers have to be constantly thinking.
Oh, absolutely. You're always thinking about how many points can I take out of this race, because usually, like you said, it goes to what place you finish determines the amount of points you get, and with a couple of bonus points added into to the mix for a certain few amount of things. But at this one, it's a lot different, where you have so many avenues to get points that you might see some people intentionally start in a position where they can make their way up through the field and collect some bonus points doing it that way, linking up with drivers and trying to work together to accumulate points. It's something that it kind of new waters for some of these drivers, that they have to think about over the course of a race. How many points am I getting, not just where I'm running out on the racetrack?
That's, of course, going to make things even more important here down the home stretch. I mean, 9 races doesn't seem like very long when you consider all the bonus points that come into effect. A lot of positions can be gained or lost in the standings in just the course of a single week. It's going to be 13 drivers to take the green flag here today at the Talladega Superspeedway. Once again, 57 laps. One faster period available to these drivers should they need it. And it's going to be Jason Gracias who'll be getting us underway. Once again, the start-finish line, if it were Daytona, we'd be approaching it right now. But go a couple hundred feet further, and that's where you find the start-finish line here at Talladega Superspeedway. That extra 100 feet or so could be very important in the closing stages of this race. But it's Toyota and Chevrolet that get us underway in the Blame Shelley 150 at Talladega. One thing we saw at Daytona as well, Anthony, was the fact that there were a lot of alliances that took place, unusual alliances, different manufacturers working together, and a lot of actually dynamic duos that took place. It'll be interesting to see if those drivers try to fight each other again here today at Talladega.
They might be comfortable working around each other, and if they've been able to have past success at Daytona, then it would stand to reason that they would try to find those same drivers again. These cars, they are able to hook up together, but during the pre-race we were discussing it, that they can't stay locked together for very long, or else the car in the back will risk overheating. So not being able to hook up very long, but the ability to do that. You want to find your partner and try to do it as best you can. Being that the track is much wider, we might be able to see some people carve through the field more than they were able to at Daytona. Right now, we're seeing a couple that were trying to work together. That would have been on the bottom of the racetrack, Tristan Mayer and going to be David Duran behind him that we're trying to link up together. They've actually found each other again on the inside, but they've got Tellier and I believe that would be Rodriguez right behind them that are trying to get together and form a pack. Now, that's a dynamic duo that could very well go the entire race together, and we might see both of them at the finish of the race still glued to each other.
That's Sky Motorsports right there, and you've also got a third teammate there in the 34, Robert Kenny, making his first start on the season. I found it very interesting there that your pole sitter Gracias led the first lap and then immediately jumped to the top, and you can see he has dropped all the way back now to near last in this lead pack. So apparently he had his goal pretty much clear. Lead that first lap, get that bonus point, and then drop out of this lead group in case something bad happens, in case that big one gets triggered. That way you've got at least some possible avenue to be able to get through it. Keep that faster pair intact here because we're only 3 laps in. It looks like maybe Justin Mayer doing the exact same thing there as he darts out of line onto the apron.
That might have been a little bit forced. I think Tellier might have gotten a little piece of the rear end of that car and sent him down to the apron, and that maybe made the decision for him because he dropped back quite a ways. Now running just outside the draft. He might lose it if everything stays the way it is, or someone might go back to pick him up, but that might have been a little forced. But the way that they're racing early in the event, they are running 2 wide and pretty much nose to tail. They've spread out now, almost 3 wide for the lead, but Duran would lead that lap. They are 3 wide for the lead now, and there was a little bobble in the middle. I believe that was Codwell that was in the middle trying to force the issue. He's now got some help on right behind him. I think that's Dorsack that's right behind him, or maybe that'd be Grover that's right behind him, but still 2 by 2, almost 3 wide throughout the field.
That just showed right there what the aero package with these Xfinity cars can do. Now falling towards the back is Steven Doziak Jr., but he made it 3 wide on the top and was actually alongside by himself. So the way you're able to generate runs, even just with a single car, you can hold on to it if you've got the drafting help behind. And so keep an eye on that as well in the closing stage of this race. As a little loose there for Cam Caldwell. And now obviously these drivers are making these aggressive moves early on, seeing what the cars are capable of. We know that they can generate big runs, but just my early thoughts of what I'm seeing here, some of these cars are looking awfully darty. I don't know if it's maybe the track conditions a little bit slick out there, and they're not certain if that car is going to stick through the corner, or if it's that aero that's maybe affecting that race car, maybe in the back end getting a little bit loose, but seeing a lot of moves of top to bottom and bottom to top here, especially in the center of the corner.
They definitely don't look like they're easy to drive at the minute. They, like you said, they are kind of bobbing around, especially going down the straightaways. You don't normally see that happen. You normally see it happen in the turns, but going down the back straightaway, you saw the 12 of Caldwell just kind of trying to keep it straight, but darting to the outside, to the inside, doing it again on the corner exit. Somebody, I think, had a major shunt in the back. There's still a little bit of contact at the front. That would have been, I think, Rodriguez, who's behind the 34 of Robert Kenny. They got out of line. Here comes Gracias on the high side by himself, trying to make the pass all the way through. I don't think he's going to be able to do it without any help, but saw Caldwell get out of shape, and then you saw Robert Kenny get out of shape coming out of turn 4 that last time by. That might be a result of having these cars. The track conditions are not that are not that intense for these drivers. And there they go. There goes Kenny around in the back straightaway with Rodriguez and the 18 of Lewis involved.
3 cars down to the inside wall on the back straightaway. Doesn't look like any of them took super hard hits. Well, correction on that. Quite a bit of damage on both the left and right front fender of Robert Kenny. Kyle Lewis, oh yeah, a lot of front end damage on his number 18 as well. Lewis was one of 2 drivers last week that did not reach the conclusion of the Daytona race. The other was Tristan Mayer. There is Matthew Rodriguez in the 57, who was in the booth with me last week, in the car this week, and getting an early taste of what these cars feel like when they're out of shape. Let's go back to the backstretch and see what happened out of turn 2.
This was something that happened going down the back straightaway, and I think what might have happened is due to the fact that these cars are a bit on edge at the moment, Robert Kenny was trying to hold it down in his lane on the outside, and then behind him, Rodriguez was pushing him down trying to make some headway, given the fact that there was 4 cars underneath him. I think he just mistimed it a little bit and just hooked the back end and sent everybody down into the inside and collected the 18 of Lewis with them.
Well, Matt and I talked about this last week at Daytona about the art of being able to push the car in front of you and make sure that the second car in line isn't going to have the water temps spike. Well, right there, I think what he was trying to do was push the 34 down the straightaway, but have a little bit of space there to the right side so that way some air would get to the grill. It would keep the water temperatures cool, and unfortunately may have just been a little bit too much of a push there in the right rear quarter panel, which hooked the 34 around.
Yeah, it looked like too much gas too early, and unfortunately, it does take out 3 competitors. And poor Lewis was just running by himself, really on the inside, not really trying. He was at the back of the pack and just got collected. He is the one that receives the least amount of damage. He took a pretty big shot to the right side, but was able to slow the car down before impacting the inside retaining wall. So if anybody has the least amount of damage, it would be the 18, as people on pit road at the moment. Looks like Garrett Gleason will be the first one out of pit road this time by. I don't know if he did not even hit his box. I think he went right through his pit box.
You are correct. So I don't know if he'll have an extra lap of caution that he'll be able to then come down pit lane this next time, or if he will elect to stay out here and be the one to lead us back to green. Caldwell came out second, David Duran, Jason Gracias, and Mike Tellier in third, fourth, and fifth. And a big question mark for the 3 drivers we saw involved there on the back straightaway for Rodriguez, Kenny, and Lewis was, would they be forced to have to take that faster pair on this early, not even 10 laps into this race? Well, it's looking like all 3 of them at this point in time are electing to just take manual repair, spend the amount of time they have to on pit road, get that thing repaired as good as possible, but keep that faster pair intact. Now the goal for them from this point on until they eventually choose to use that faster pair is to make sure that that thing is up to speed enough that they can keep themselves on the lead lap.
Yeah, and this is the big track, so even if they lose the lead pack, if they're all together, they might be able to run the trio of them and keep some relative pace to keep on track with the leaders. Lewis has just now come out onto the racetrack. Next driver coming out would be Matthew Rodriguez, who's just pulled out of his pit stall, and Robert Kenny still sitting on pit road. Kenny took the most of the damage, the full brunt of both of the impacts, so staying on pit road an extended period to get the car repaired, as everyone else gets around onto the front straightaway. So if Robert Kenny doesn't get back on track here in the next couple seconds, we might have our first driver lap down, and that's going to set him trying to chase down the leaders. Speaking of the leaders, Garrett Gleason is coming to pit road, although he's pulled off and letting everyone go by first. And we have someone coming down pit road. That's the 97 of Mike Tellier back on pit road.
I'll be looking to top off that fuel tank here. I believe he is the only one that is coming down potentially to top off the fuel tank. Actually surprised a couple guys maybe closer to the rear of the field might not have come down and done the same thing. As lights are on top of the pace car, and you see there, Caldwell and David Durand on the inside line. Now, normally Durand would pull up to the outside of the 12, but Gracias going to move from third now up to second, the outside of the front row. That's because the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series implement the choose cone at the start-finish line at the 1 to green signal, and we saw last week at Daytona as well. That brought about a lot of strategy for the race leader, for the drivers up inside the top 5, of whether they wanted to take the preferred line around the racetrack, which, as we saw last week, was mostly the top line, or if they wanted to be able to choose a different line to have a teammate or an alliance behind them. We're going to see that during the course of the day here, because there are some drivers that are just comfortable with somebody pushing them. There are other drivers that would like to be able to break up an alliance. So a lot of strategy coming into play in that choose cone rule as well.
Speaking of alliance, another implementation of the choose cone would be if you have someone that's close to you and you want them behind or in front of you, then you might be able to work out something between the two of you and have you line up nose to tail with each other, or even put them in a lane that they would like to be in. As you can see, there's a lot of drivers that have elected the inside line. Not very many on the top side. There's a couple of complete rows that have got nobody in them. The way they line up for the restart is Cam Caldwell and Jason Gracias at the front. Then you have David Durand, Austin Grover, and The top 5 will be completed by Steven Dosiak Jr. As we get ready to go back to green flag, 1 yellow so far tonight. So a few laps to go, and we are going to be restarting on lap 10 out of 57. So still a long ways to go, Seth, but the way these guys are running, the laps have ticked by pretty quick. These cars have got some horsepower in them, and they've got some huge top end speed.
Oh yeah, they are fast. They turn low 54s to high 53s just by themselves, and their fastest laps so far tonight have been anywhere in the high 49s to low 50-second ranges. So yeah, the laps tick away very, very quickly. 8 drivers on the bottom, 5 drivers on the top. Cam Caldwell is the control car. He can go at any point here that he so chooses, and that could catch everybody else off guard. He doesn't want to get too big of a lead, though, with what we've seen for the runs. As he gets up through the gears now, Gracias looks to do the same. And to your point, Anthony, a lot of opportunity for drivers that might want to get themselves all formulated, might pull off the Joey Logano coined phrase, okie dokie. Doesn't look like that's the case here for Gracias. He might be able to tuck in front of Dosiak here. Nope, Dosiak's going to fill the hole, and maybe Gracias is going to have to wait to slot behind the 55. Nope, he'll stay on the top off of 2.
The top side of the racetrack, a lot of drivers like running it just to run it because it's a little bit easier to go through the top side as it is the bottom side. A lot more stable up at the top is, say that Gracias does now move to the inside line, but one of the benefits also is that the way that these cars are handling, they might want to run the top end just so they don't have to turn the wheel as much or have the bottom out happen at the exit of the turns, because there is a transition period between corner exit and the straightaways where the car kind of gets a little bit of a floating sensation when they come out of the turns, and then all of a sudden you find yourself spinning around or trying to catch the car on corner exit, whereas if you're on the top side, it's not as aggressive. But the way that they're running now, Gracias was on the bottom, now goes back to the outside trying to get to the lead of the race. He's got help now in the form of the 38 machine. That would be Valvano on the top side.
No surprise to see the 1 and the 98 of Gracias and Maher working together. Those two, they were very good last week at Daytona as well, and they're going to make up enough speed on the back straightaway that Gracias is alongside of Cam Caldwell for that top position. And also just a little bit of update there on those drivers that got involved in that wreck there for our first and only caution up to this point. Didn't take out the faster pair. Rodriguez, he's still up here in this lead pack. Kenny is still up in this lead pack. And the 18 of Kyle Lewis, he's just now moved back up inside the top 5.
Seems like that the damage wasn't enough to keep these drivers at bay. As long as you're in the draft and the engine isn't damaged, then you've got the same amount of horsepower. You're going to struggle in the aerodynamic department for some of these more heavily damaged cars, but Kyle Lewis was one of the drivers that took the least amount of damage, so not surprising to see how fast that car is up in the lead pack of cars he's gotten on the outside. You can see now Gracias using the outside line. He's got a longer train of cars behind him. He's been able to freight train around the outside, trying to get by Caldwell. But still, that inside line persists as Caldwell and Durand on the inside. Now, with the help of Ivano, he's got some more drivers behind that are trying to catch up, including the 3 of Shu and now Mike Tellier.
A number of drivers here today making their first start on the season, including Valvano in that 38, Rodriguez in the 57, Jason Shu in that very familiar Black Intimidator scheme of Dale Earnhardt Seniors in that number 3 car, as well as Robert Kenny in the 34. A lot of movement right there as they were almost 3 wide. They now settle it out to side by side, about 6 rows deep from the front all the way to the back. But nobody seems to be able to get an edge here. Gracias and Caldwell, they have been side by side, literally nose to nose for the last 2.5 laps.
Yeah, they haven't been able to really get an edge on anybody, and I think partway due to the fact that the outside line's got had a little bit more cars than it did on the inside, but now it's kind of evened out. But you're seeing something that you're not seeing on the top side that you're seeing on the inside. The 2 leaders being Durand and make that Caldwell on the inside. What they've been able to do is kind of link up together and get away from the guys behind them on the outside line. Now you see it. They've been able to stay in a consistent train, and now the outside has gotten a huge run. Gracias gets to the inside in front of Caldwell, who now has the run. And now you're going to see on the outside, Tristan Mayer now has got a run. At least he did before he got left out to drive by Lewis.
I'm not certain about this 18 of Kyle Lewis. You can see the front end damage on his machine after getting involved in that early wreck. That car obviously is very good when he's following. I'm not necessarily certain aerodynamically, though, if that's a car that can cut the draft and create speed to help tow a line. And there's your answer right there, as he is very rapidly, along with Doziak, kicked to that outside line and dropping outside of the top 5.
I think they're not a bad strategy to be in. Now they're starting to get really racy at the front of the field. And we saw what happened last time when we started pushing down the straightaways. And I'm noticing that we have a driver that I didn't think would be that much up to speed, but if you look at the back end of the 57, you wouldn't think that car would be competitive. But right now, Matthew Rodriguez has cracked the top 7, is now on the inside line trying to get to the leaders.
Yeah, very much like the 18, though, of Kyle Lewis. I think that that's a car that can follow, but might not necessarily be able to lead. You can see the damage right there still on the front end of that machine, as he's going to pull up to the back bumper of his teammate Mike Tellier. So he might be a car that can push the 97 to the lead, but I'm not necessarily certain it's a car that can lead while up to speed himself. Again, bear in mind, though, all 3 of the drivers that were involved in that only caution of the day so far still have their fast repair intact. So everybody still has that mulligan, as, man, that 57, very good pusher despite the damage, as Mike Tellier, that Red Bull Camry, going to go to the point.
Yeah, the extreme speed out of these two. And now that Rodriguez, whoa! That could have been bad, and I think that because the back end of the car was damaged is the only reason he was able to get away with that. But Rodriguez,
he did 2 inches, and those 2 inches were gone on that back bumper. You're right.
Oh, goodness gracious. Almost getting in, well, almost turned down into Caldwell, but then gets onto the apron. Now we're 3 wide racing for second place. Tristan Mayer in the middle of the racetrack. Whoa, goodness. Still on lap 16. We got a long ways to go, guys.
Yeah, my goodness. I mentioned these cars looking dirty. Whoa, Tellier might have gotten a bump from behind that got him awfully loose. That got him to the inside of Tristan Mayer. I'm not necessarily certain if that's considered legal or not. Granted, the 97 was in the process of saving the race car, but I think he did go down below that double yellow line.
I don't know. Maybe the line rule, maybe they're a little bit more lenient on the line rule in the series, but yeah, that definitely would be illegal if you were run at a in another league, or maybe even just this league. But maybe they've relaxed it for this rule. I don't know. But that what? Whoa! There they go. There goes Rodriguez.
And he's headed straight for the inside wall. Hits it a ton with the front end of that machine. Vince Valvano also slow on the bottom of 3 and 4. No caution, however, so I don't think that 57 went completely around until he was below the double yellow line, and now the caution is being thrown. I believe this is an admin thrown caution. David Durand was in the wall there as well, heading into the tri-oval. So second caution of the day coming out for another incident, again on the back straightaway, and I don't think this is going to be an opportunity for Matthew Rodriguez to keep the fast repair intact this time. He nosed it pretty hard into that inside safer barrier.
Absolutely. I remember saying a few laps ago how it was the advantage that he had a bit of a crumpled up rear end, that he was able to slot in line, but with right in front of Caldwell. But this time it looks like it might have been the thing that sent him around was, I think, him and Valvano linked together, or tried to link together, and because the rear end of the car had so much damage, there wasn't a safe place to really hook up and just launch the car outside and then launch the car back to the inside, and got hooked straight into the inside wall.
This is what we call chain bumping. You'll notice that just before Rodriguez spins, he also hits just barely the back of Mike Tellier. So the shot that Rodriguez got from behind from Vincent Valvano sent him also into the back bumper of Mike Tellier, and I think that just completed the spin. He might have actually had the thing saved had he not had that last little bit of extra contact with the 97. That is a hard shot. No opportunity for that car to slow any speed, slow any momentum. And Matthew Rodriguez still sitting on pit road. He's actually, it looks like, not even come to pit lane in that 57 car. So we'll follow up and see what the story's going to be. I think he's actually just now coming down pit road behind the race leaders. Jason Gracia is going to lead him down.
And as they come down on pit lane to get some more service, top off with fuel, and potentially change tires. They haven't been running long enough, I wouldn't think, to need a tire change, but we'll see what they elect to do as Gracias hits the pit lane. It looks like it will be some fresh tires for the one machine. Everyone behind him also getting some fresh tires. Somebody, and that's Garrett Gleason again, that goes through pit lane. And didn't take time in his pit box. So another
Sir.
missed stall for Gleason.
Yeah, it's the same thing that happened under the last caution. Now, under the last caution, he did come down pit road the following lap. Let's actually go back and see what the trouble is here for the 7. Is he purposely coming down pit lane and not getting into his pit stall, or is he actually missing his pit box? Let's follow the 7 here down pit lane. Does he even attempt to make a left-hand turn into the pit box? He started this race from the 6th position. He never made a left-hand turn. So I think this is, I don't know if we can consider this strategy on his part. Is he just coming down pit lane with the race leaders and then pitting the following lap so he can get at least the bonus point for the lap led? Is he planning on pitting the second time around every time to have that extra lap of fuel? I don't know.
If you're trying to stay out like that, normally you would just stay off the pit lane because then you run the risk of potentially having a speeding penalty if you creep over the limit. So a bit of a dangerous game, but he never made an attempt. This time around, he's still pacing around with the safety truck. Not sure. I don't know. That one's kind of baffling, I'll be honest with you. I don't know what the strategy is there for Gleason. What I do know is that Mike Tellier, showing a bit of strategy himself, he was able to have a 6-second box time, which speaks to me that I don't think he took tires that last time by, and as a result, he comes out the interim second place. If Gleason doesn't pit, he will be second place, but if Gleason pits, he will be the leader. And Mike Tellier's coming back down the pit lane again. This is something he did the last time out as well.
Jason Gracias is also coming down in the 1 machine. So Cam Caldwell is going to lead us back to yet another restart. They'll have Doziak Jr., Kyle Lewis, and David Durand, the top 4 behind him. Looked like we had a couple of other drivers that spent a little bit of extra time on pit road that first time down as well. Jason Shue, as well as Austin Grover and Vincent Valvano, who of course got some front-end damage from the incident on the back straightaway. Spent a little bit extra time in their pit boxes, so they got some damage in some way, shape, or form, I would guess, there during the course of that run. And Matthew Rodriguez, I don't think he did any damage repair whatsoever here under this caution period. First time down, about a 14.5-second pit stop. That'd be a regular 4-tire stop. And that last time down, just fuel only down the way. I don't think they repaired a lick of damage on that car this caution period.
Looking back at it, I think he's used his fast repair. That car
he just did then. Yep.
Yeah.
Second time down, he just used the fast repair.
Yeah, that car is very pristine. So definitely a fast repair. Well, the only fast repair that he's had available. So we'll have to keep an eye on the 57's progress to make sure that he doesn't have another off, as he's been involved in the last 2 yellows that we've had so far tonight. As Caldwell is your leader. Now this is pretty interesting. Nobody, save from row 2, has elected the outside line. So everyone wants to be on that inside line, going it's kind of like seeing a classic restart where everyone's single file except for the lap down cars, except reverse the order. The lap cars would usually be on the inside and the lead lap would be on the outside, and we've reversed it here. So no one wants to be on that outside line on the restart, despite having it some good advantages once the run progresses.
Yeah, those 2 cars on the outside, Kyle Lewis and Robert Kenny, who you can visibly see still have a little bit of damage from the earlier incident, the first caution of the day, so they are slightly off the pace in terms of running by themselves. They'll try and tuck in line here with these other drivers. They are still up to speed as long as they're in the draft. Cam Caldwell, Steven Doziak Jr., David Durand, Vince Valvano, and I believe that's Austin Grover, the 5 drivers on the inside line here. They're going to be the ones that'll try and settle it out of who's going to be the leader when they get into turn 1, choosing the shorter way around the racetrack here for this restart. Caldwell back up through the gears, race back underway, closing in on the halfway point here at Talladega.
And Caldwell on the inside got a decent jump over Doziak on the inside as well, but on the outside line you could see that Lewis and make that Kenny have kind of caught up, but now they start to fall back. And Valvano got caught sleeping as he's left a door open on the inside that one of these drivers could potentially go into, and that would be Kyle Lewis. Everyone behind them trying to shuffle around. Duran was kind of getting a little out of shape, but has now found the outside line, trying to get around on the outside with some help from Kenny. Make that the 18 of Kyle Lewis. So Duran and Lewis hooking up, and on the inside, Valvano has elected to stay down on the low side.
Riding on board with Vincent Valvano, one of 2 Fords in the field here today, along with 98 of Tristan Mayer. So obviously the Blue Oval's a bit outnumbered as, wow, really loose right there in front of him was the 55 of Steven Doziak Jr.
Not only that, but behind them, Rodriguez had a whale of a run and didn't really quite know where to take it, had to escape to the apron. But as they run, still double file throughout the first 2 rows, and then behind them even now has gone double file with Tristan Mayer and Rodriguez. So 2 by 2, 4 rows deep, make that 3 wide for the outside of Mayer, or Mayer going around the outside trying to get it up there. Might have been a bit of contact between him and Lewis, but nowhere for Mayer to take the run. Didn't have any help, but now Tellier will fall in behind him.
A little too late there, the 97 getting to the 55. There's Robert Kenny as he's down there below the double yellow line. Think he may have gotten a little loose as now he's down on the apron. Matthew Rodriguez down there on the apron. Not sure what's going on there. And things got really fanned out there for a brief moment, too. I'm not certain what was going on in all of that. Obviously, there was some communications going on because nobody ran anybody else over, but that was quite an interesting formation through the tri-oval and back to the start-finish line. Looks like Rodriguez might be now dropping to the back of the pack as we're 3 wide at the front. Here comes David Durand on the top. Help from Austin Grover. Last week, Durand was only 2.5 miles away from capturing the victory before he got hooked off the nose coming to the white flag, spun it down through the infield grass, was able to save it, but brought it home in the 8th position.
That was trying to have that same luck not happen this time around, except it's a lot longer racetrack and you can hold more cars here, but the way that they're racing, it might happen sooner than later. 3 wide for the lead. Duran will lead that lap on the outside line. They're 3 wide, about 2 rows deep. There was a bit of a bobble on the outside line. I think it was Austin Grover that got out of shape on the outside. As they continue, there's 4 cars that have formed an extreme outside line, rim riding around the outside of the track. And you got 2 cars stuck in the middle trying to hold tight with these drivers. But I got to admit, for that line traditionally being known as the worst line you can take if you're running 3 wide, as Superspeedways, Duran goes across 3 lanes of traffic to get to the inside.
Austin Grover now going to lead that top line. 3rd place last week in the opener at Daytona. Actually, correction, he was 2nd place in the season opener over Cam Caldwell. Now Doziak Jr. jumps up to the middle behind the 12 machine. Caldwell and Durand going to be the ones to race it here to the start-finish line. I just heard that there actually are no out of bounds. That's why you're seeing drivers make those moves down below the yellow line. It is legal.
Now, there's plenty of room on the back straightaway to make that happen. You essentially have another 8 lanes that you could potentially use. But the issue with that is that you're going to have to time it to get back on the racetrack before the turn comes, because if you're stuck on the apron, or if you're even kind of got half your car below the yellow and half of it above, then you're going to have some problems when trying to enter the turns. As Lewis almost found out, he was about halfway on, half off as he gets back in the line. But still, 3 wide for 2nd for a moment, now 3 wide for 3rd. In the middle, Cam Caldwell continuing to lead the way. Tristan Mayers now finds himself in the middle of the pack, and he's trying to now dart to the inside for the lead. Another lead change, potentially, and this one gives to the 98. I think he did lead at the line.
Barely did by a splitter, and what a gutsy move there. Set up Caldwell perfectly through the center of the tri-oval, duck to the inside, nothing Caldwell could do to block. Look at Jason Gracias there on the top with Doziak Jr., as well as I believe that's the 83 of Grover. And seeing that run come is Tristan Mayer. He's going to jump up to the top side now, try and either pick up that momentum or at least stifle it out. Keep them 3 wide for 2nd. Durand, big run on the inside though. Caldwell in the middle. We're 3 wide again into 3.
And Duran trying to keep it on the inside. He's got the run. He will take the lead. Something that happened on the exit of turn 2 going down the back straightaway was the one of Gracias got a piece of the wall coming out of turn 2. I don't think it'll do enough damage to keep him uncompetitive, but that's something that these drivers are going to have to pay attention to. being too high and having the car kind of step out towards the outside of the racetrack. Want to keep it in line. You don't want to keep bashing the car in, because that could have been a chain reaction crash that took out the entirety of the leaders.
See Matthew Rodriguez at the tail end of this pack. He was losing touch with the lead group as Tellier got awfully squirrely in front of the 98 of Tristan Mayer. Great save by Mike. But one thing I observed in practice when I was watching these drivers run in a pack, if you are still about 7-8 car lengths behind the lead group, you still have a whiff of draft. You can still get up into this lead pack. So keep an eye on that during the course of this race too. If somebody ends up getting out of shape, dropping to the back, and it looks like they're out of it, do not count them out just yet, because there is every opportunity to still get up here, still be competitive, and still be in the hunt for that checkered flag.
Absolutely, and the way that these drivers can tear their way through the field, it's kind of fun to watch. That some drivers will go to the back of the pack, and then all of a sudden you see them a couple laps later back up at the front and get. Perfect example is Jason Gracias. He was at the back of the pack for most of the beginning laps, and then found his way at vying for the lead not 3 laps later. But right now, as they run, they're kind of trying to settle themselves out a little bit. And I say that as Tellier now darts back to the outside line. Nobody to go with him this time. Single file and double file, well, mostly double file racing seems to what be on these drivers' minds at the moment. But as they run right now, Seth, it's still a long way to go. We're only working 28 of 57 laps. So with the amount of laps that we've got left, do you think these drivers would benefit from trying to settle down a little bit, maybe run some laps single file, even the way that they're running right now, kind of run double file and conserve their stuff for later on? I know a lot of them still have their fast repairs, but as we've seen with Matthew Rodriguez, he does not have a fast repair. Now, your car can be competitive if it's slightly damaged or even moderately damaged, but at the same time, you don't want to have to give up your only lifeline in case late in the race something drastic happens and you have to rely on it.
Absolutely not. I mean, like in the case of Tristan Mayer, he was a very strong machine last week, up there inside the top 5 pretty much the entirety of the day, but then wrong place, wrong time, caught up in a wreck that eventually had him finish in the 11th position, last in the field. You don't want to be in that scenario, but one thing that makes me a little bit worried is you called what we're seeing right now just kind of calm down and riding. If this is calm down and riding, I don't want to know what we're going to see in the second half of this race, as we've just now hit the halfway point.
We're going to see this, but with more aggression.
Hey.
The way that they've scared me a little bit, the way that they're running on the just everywhere on the racetrack right now. Something that I have noticed, though, is that they have settled down quite a bit. Now, the cars themselves, the biggest takeaway is that they haven't gotten easier to drive. We were mentioning that earlier on before the second yellow came out, that they kind of looked that they were trying to really hold the car in a straight line, and the best example is just what happened to Mike Tellier. Darts up the racetrack and almost collects. I believe that was Tristan Mayer on the outside that almost got collected, but a good example. The way that these cars are handling, they don't look like they're the easiest to point in a straight line, which is pretty much everything that you're doing at Talladega or Daytona or any super speedway we go to, is kind of trying to keep the car from spinning around at these high speeds. Being that the case, they were able to keep it 3 wide, but if we get into the late stages of the race and they're trying to make moves, how much more pressure does that put on drivers?
Austin Grover around, Cam Caldwell gets a piece as well. Caution is going to come out. Another car was up and into the wall. I believe that might have been the 38 of Alvano. And Grover, who was the runner-up last week, involved in this one on the back straightaway. That looked an awful lot like some bumpers potentially locking, with a couple aggressive blocks thrown there on the back straightaway.
Certainly did. I think that Grover, he was on the inside line, and then he tried to get in front of the outside, but was just inches away from not being clear, and then ended up hitting into the actually got tagged in the right rear quarter panel by the 12 of Caldwell and got sent up to the outside wall, and then chain reaction down to the inside. Caldwell spinning around, as well as a couple drivers getting slow to avoid.
Obviously a hard hit there to the right front for the 83, but able to lock it down so it did not shoot back down to the inside wall, and great job by everybody to avoid the 83 as well. A little bit of damage also to the right side of the Vincent Valvano machine as he went up and into the outside wall. But take a look here again. Yeah, I thought that maybe it had something to do with the block that David Durand put on Austin Grover, but as you can see there was definitely some space between the 24 and the 83. It was just the unfortunate hit from behind. And that's a thing too. You talk about just how these cars look so unsettled. These guys are wanting to give those square bumps down the straightaways to get the best momentum possible, not spin out that car in front. When the car is moving around and the car you're trying to bump is moving around, how do you pinpoint where your front bumper and their rear bumper are going to hit?
It's a really close game of just bump and hope for the best. But if you can lock and stay locked, then that's kind of the best scenario. But that was an incident where this time it really wasn't a bump. It was just something that they were trying to pull up in line and hope that they could get a push down the back straightaway to propel them up to the lead of the race. But when you are darting around like that, then you just, I guess, just have to hope that you line up correctly and have the guy in front not dart, or even yourself try to keep it in a straight line and not have a sudden change of direction while you're trying to push somebody. Another driver that did take damage in that last incident was Doziak. In the 55, some pretty significant front end damage, although from past experiences, that doesn't automatically mean he'll be slower, just means he'll spend a little more time on the pit lane to try and fix it. But the one thing that we haven't seen much of tonight, and we saw a lot of it the last race, was people were trying to use the two-car tandem to their advantage. Now, at Daytona, they certainly looked a bit more stable than they do here, so you think that might be playing into why we're not seeing these two-car tandems, along with the fact that the guy behind is definitely losing a lot of, or actually increasing his water temps by being the pusher and having his engine life maybe cut short by a few laps. But given the fact that the cars were a little easier to control at Daytona, you think that that might be another influence to why these drivers aren't trying it more in this one?
Yeah, easier to line up the bumpers, I would think, last week at Daytona to make sure that you're going to be locked to that car in front. Now, we saw a couple of times, even back at Daytona, where the car that was being pushed would look a little unsettled and it would actually lead to some near wrecks. Here today, though, I just almost think it's near impossible to be able to lock those bumpers up. I mean, let's go back to a point you were talking about under that last run where Mike Tellier shot up the racetrack. He was in the middle groove, in the second groove going into that corner, and then when we saw him, he was almost migrated up into the third groove. Just the unpredictability of what the car is going to do going into the corner, I think, gives these drivers that apprehension of trying that two-car tandem. Now, do I think that as we get closer to the end of this race, they are going to be willing to try the two-car tandem? Absolutely. They're going to try and see if they can gap the rest of the field and, either bring home the trophy, bring home the steering wheel mentality. But right now, since we have just barely crossed into the halfway point and these guys are trying to keep that faster pair intact, I don't think you're necessarily going to see them testing the waters of that tandem just yet. Update on drivers with faster pairs. A couple of drivers did take them on here under this caution period. Robert Kenny, who was involved in the first caution, he finally took his faster pair. We already have documented Matthew Rodriguez and Cam Caldwell in the 12 machine. He also took on a faster pair. I didn't see him get involved in any incidents up to this point, so a little interesting there that the guy who started this race from the outside of the front row and has spent a good portion of the race up there, at least inside of the top three, been out in front quite a bit as well, is now a faster pair in the hole with more than 20 laps to go.
Caldwell did get a little damage the last time around. He was the one that got, or did the hooking of our driver that spun around the last time out. That being said, I don't think it was enough that it would have caused any cause for concern for using a faster pair. Certainly, we saw earlier Kyle Lewis, Matthew Rodriguez, and the like be able to stay out even with their extended damage on their machines and be able to really use their cars still at top performance. But yeah, a little strange that Caldwell would elect to use it. Maybe he feels that he'll benefit from having a better handling race car, which is something that might have also influenced what we saw earlier with our second yellow, where Rodriguez was kind of trying to hold on to his race car, and because it was damaged, it wasn't as easy to hold on to. So maybe Caldwell's motive for getting the faster pair now is that his car will continue to be handling properly around the racetrack, given the fact that these cars are already looking like they're hard to control. David Duran will restart the leader. Have Robert Kenny, Kyle Lewis, Garrett Gleason, and Vincent Valvano, the top 5. Doziak, Teller, Mayer, Grover, and Rodriguez, your top 10, and then Gracias, Caldwell, who was one of the ones involved the last time out, and then Jason Shu, which was slowed up by the last incident. I'm not sure if he had any damage he needed to get repaired, but he has come down and will now restart at the tail end of the field. All 13 cars that took the start are still running as the pace truck peels off pit road. We're about to set them back going on lap 35 and 57, getting close to go time for a lot of these drivers as everyone has elected the outside line this time. Let's see what their motive for doing that is, as Duran will get us set to run. Waiting, and there goes the 24. We're back under green.
Austin Grover, who took the hard hit there on the back straightaway, he spent about a little over a minute getting repairs done to that machine. Still has his fast repair intact. We'll keep an eye on him on how up to speed he might possibly be, as Durand is going to lead them through 1 and 2. Lewis slots to second. Kenny will drop down into the third position. We saw that kind of staggered looking restart back after the second caution, and this one here with all the drivers on the inside on the previous restart, all the drivers on the top side on this restart actually just realized, or well, not realized, but was told by race control that what happens is the drivers that come to pit road at the 1 to green signal, they have to line up. It is mandatory that they line up in the longest line on the restart. So that would explain why we had so many cars on the inside line onto the last yellow flag, and why we had most of the drivers lined up on the top side here on this most previous restart.
As battling happening in the lead of the race, we saw a lot of drivers kind of get squirrely going through the tri-oval into the front straightaway, but now still lining up. Duran holding the inside line. I'm surprised he's even able to hold the inside line. Usually we see that the outside line starts to get a bit of a freight train going.
Look at the top. Two Toyota Camrys, Rodriguez and Gracias. They are hooked up and they are gone.
And that is the two-car tandem's power. We were wondering if they were going to use it, and then Gracias and Rodriguez were able to hook together, and that is a massive lead that they've accumulated over Duran. Duran will now be in their draft, try to catch back up, but that might be some practice for later in the race when they might want to try and hook up together and do that for a potential race win.
Observe that one, ladies and gentlemen, because you're going to see a lot more of that in the closing stages of this race, and I guarantee you everybody else in the field noticed that as well. They're going to be going to school seeing who's the driver I can hook up the best with.
Now check out in the middle line. It's got the 34 of Kenny and Tristan Mayer now hooking up together, going through the middle of the racetrack. Now they've blown out to a huge lead.
I like how we saw Gracias and Rodriguez pull that move off. Now Rodriguez says, all right, we've tested it. I'm getting out of Dodge. Gracias probably dropping back there to cool off those water temperatures. We end up seeing them at the front, and just about maybe 2 corners later, they both fall outside of the top 5.
Now, right now, Mayer cannot be pushed, given the fact that his rear end has got a nice dent in it where some drivers have attempted to get around the 98, but unfortunately have not. So right now, all he's hoping for is nobody tries to lock up with him, but he's been able to lock up extremely well with Robert Kenny, and I wouldn't be surprised if these two try to form a tag team later in the race. Duran has gotten to the inside. Now, one thing I have noticed is because the water temps rise so high is that they haven't been able to really pull away and stay out in front. Usually in the two-car tandem era, when we saw cars link up together, they were able to basically run by themselves. We're not seeing that. Seeing them be able to get to the lead extremely quick, but then as soon as they get there, people behind them will start catching up, including Duran, Lewis, and Valvano on the inside line, as now it's a 5-car tandem. And Mayer, a little contact between him and Duran. They're getting awful racy now.
I'm not certain, and you probably could touch on this, the incident that we had with Grover on the back straightaway, I did not see either Tristan Mayer nor Mike Tellier get involved in that, but I'm almost wondering if maybe they were involved in a stack-up just behind it, because if you look at the back of the 98, he's got quite a dent in it that looks very similar to the damage that's on the front of the Red Bull Camry of Mike Tellier.
I would imagine that they were certainly running up on the, actually they were running in the inside line, but when the cars tracked to the inside, I think they stacked up to try and not be part of it. And As a result, they ended up being a part of a separate incident. So it certainly hasn't impeded their speed, as Tellier on the inside with behind Gracias still holding up and still a fast race car. And obviously Tristan Mayer has now taken the lead of the race. So that damage on the rear end of the 98 definitely not hindering his top speed performance. Durand, however, is kind of getting frustrated with the 98 because he's got speed. He wants to hook up, but he can't because of the damage on the back end of the 98.
There's a lot of cars up here in this shot that are dealing with damage that you might not expect. As Rodriguez, look at that, gets the run. He's going to try the apron here on the back straight. Durand says, no, sir. He's going to block him. Are we going 4 wide down the back straightaway here? We are. Rodriguez backs out, but that leaves him stacked up 3 wide, 2 rows deep.
Potentially 4 wide for the lead for a moment, but I think Grover backed out of it, was trying to get to the inside, but the apron closed up on him. Now 2 wide racing at the front of the field between Durand, Lewis, and company, as the outside tries to regather and get a run going. Now 4 cars line up on the inside. Look at Tellier.
Oh, no!
And that was just the slightest bit of contact, and around goes the 98 of Mayer.
Oh, you could see, I believe it was wheel-to-wheel contact between the 97 and the 98. You saw Mike Tellier's right front jump up into the air when the 2 Goodyears made contact with each other. Caution's going to fly for the 4th time here today. Let's go back and look at it again. I'm not necessarily certain that Tristan Mayer was fully aware that Tellier had made that 4 wide move.
I don't think so either. And Tellier kind of had a run and didn't really know where to take it, and then tried to force his car into a 4 wide situation. And yeah, I think Mayer just didn't know and turned down into the 97. Made just the slightest bit of contact, but that popped up the 97's right front, and then just a chain reaction, and the only one that spun around was the 98.
Watch the save here by Robert Kenny in the 34. He's going to get a little bit of contact there into the left rear, and look at that thing fishtailing all the way down towards turn 1. Tremendous save there by Robert Kenny, who, remember, had already used his faster pair under the last caution. So if that thing had gotten damaged and been totaled right there, that would have been race over.
Absolutely. But Mayer has gotten back going. Everyone has gotten back going from that previous incident. I say everyone, but Tristan Mayer, there is, I believe, some suspension damage to that car. He's been trying to hold it sideways going down the back straightaway. So whatever damage that 98 has sustained, it's definitely a lot more sinister than I think he'd like to have as he's coming down to pit road. Might unfortunately do him in, Tristan Mayer. But everyone else,
faster pair available, but this is looking eerily similar to what happened last week at Daytona, where with about 15 laps to go, he had to take on that faster pair and then found himself on the tow hook not too long after.
So have to keep an eye and see if he can reverse the luck from Daytona. He's gotten his faster pair to, actually, I don't think he's taking it on. I think he's trying to fix the car manually thus far, and that might be some of the battle scars from Daytona. Don't want to have to use it now and then be involved again. So smart move on the part of the 98 squad, as Durand has come out in front of everybody. Valvano will be restarting 3rd, and Jason Shu, I don't think he pitted the last time by. If he did, he only took fuel, as he did pit the last time by.
Top 3 did not pit this caution.
Well, top 3 did not pit this caution. So Durand, Valvano, Shu stay out. Kyle Lewis will be the first of the cars to pit. That will be restarting in 4th place. At this stage in the race, not pitting, if you have the fuel to make it to the end of the race, then good call, bad call. I don't think tires are that big of a concern around this circuit.
I don't think they are either. I don't think that, the slipping and sliding we've seen drivers have has anything really to do with the tires underneath them. I think it's just the track conditions. And I think that maybe I'd want to have that track position just in case something breaks out here in these final 15 laps or so. Not necessarily certain I want to be the race leader, though, when we get closer to the end of this race. But that's still a ways away here. 3 more drivers. Add them to the faster pair brigade as Mike Tellier, Austin Grover. They took on their faster pairs there under this yellow flag, as did Kyle Lewis, who's going to be restarting up in that 4th position. So There's only a handful of drivers now that still have their faster pair intact, including your top three, also Jason Gracias, Steven Doziak Jr., Garrett Gleason, and Tristan Mayer, who did return back to the racetrack. Not necessarily certain how much repair you can do on a car's suspension to make sure that thing's going to stay pointed in the right direction, but there it is, and yeah, looks like it's still, looks like the toe's not knocked out on it, so see what that car's going to be able to do here for the remainder of this race. Here's the issue, too, and I'm being maybe optimistic on this, but let's say that we do go green to the end. I mean, there's guys here in the field still that have not taken on their faster pair that probably at this point in time could have. Jason Gracia still dealing with that right front damage. You've got Valvano, who's got some right side damage from brushing the wall, and then obviously the 98 of Tristan Mayer. This could have been your possibly last opportunity to take on that faster pair. It's kind of a gamble of whether you take it on or whether you don't when you get closer with less laps left on the board.
And I think the aggression level these drivers are going to race with is definitely going to skyrocket, especially now that we've seen them try to test the waters with what does and does not work to try and get a win here tonight. So with that being said, they're starting to take whatever they learned into practice for or put whatever they've learned into practice for the end of this event, which is coming up very shortly, getting close, if not already past, to 15 to go. And now that it's crunch time for these drivers, we're going to see the alliances start to form. Any alliance that they've made throughout this race and the last race carrying over into this race, we should see in full swing. And we will set them up like this for our restart on 44 of 57, that be laps. David Duran is the leader. Vincent Valvano will be lining up second place. Then it's Shu, Lewis, Doziak, Gracias, Grover, Caldwell, Kenny, Gleason, Mayer, or make that Mayer, Kenny, Gleason, Tellier, and Rodriguez will be our running order as we start to, or as we get them lined up for the restart. That being said, it's going to get intense, and it's going to get intense extremely quick. Again, these drivers spent the first half and the latter half of the second half of the race learning what they can and can't get away with and who they feel comfortable working with. So, Seth, with this restart moments upon us, what are we going to see in these last 15 or so laps?
I could be very curious to see with 14 laps to go if this is when drivers would consider it go time. There's still quite a number of laps to be run, so we'll see if they turn up the aggression level right here and now or if they wait a couple of laps when we near about maybe 10 laps to go. Green flag back in the air, a little bit of wheel spin there out of Jason Shu in the 3. That's not what David Durand wanted to see because there's a gap now between himself and the car behind him. Topside tries to get hooked up. Valvano rear deck lid completely full of Kyle Lewis's 18.
And now as they fan out the inside line, getting a bit of a jump. Durand trying to pull away. We got a guy in the apron. That would be the 12, I think, of Caldwell trying to sort himself out as everyone blows on by. He gets back in line, inside line right now with the advantage. But check out on the outside, Valvano with a run, trying to hold tough. But behind him, Kyle Lewis stepped away from him. Now back in line. You think they're trying to hook up? They are in the middle of the turn. They're trying to hook up.
And they're going to get some good speed out of turn 4. The 38's going to edge ahead for the time being. I think he's now clear on the 24. Lewis clear as well. Now he'll shift from top to bottom. He's going to try and take the spot.
And at the line, will have the lead of the race. Gracias behind on the outside of Valvano, and Duran trying to catch back up to Kyle Lewis as they still battle side by side. 3 wide behind them, a couple of rows back. You've got Rodriguez, Tellier, and now make that Mayer on the inside. 3 wide still. Battle for the lead still between really nobody at the minute because Lewis has kind of checked out. The entire inside line is checked out from the outside line.
And that outside line cannot get going. You saw there over in 1 and 2. Jason Gracias tried to get to the back bumper of the 38 and push him, and it made that 38 very unhappy. That causes everyone to check up, loses the momentum that they need, and now these guys, these 3 on the top side, include in Austin Grover in the 83, they might be trying to find a way down to the bottom. Now Matthew Rodriguez, he's hooked up with Robert Kenny 3 wide on the top. This is not the first time we've seen that 57 up high, wide, and handsome and getting pushed to the front. It was Gracias before. Now it's Kenny. Let's see what they can do out of turn 2 and onto the back straightaway. Ton of momentum for both those Camrys.
They've linked up around the outside. Oh, a little bit of a babble into the wall, I think, that Robert Kenny just took. So that has stopped the momentum as Rodriguez does get the advantage, but with the asterisk of no one to help him as they're fanning out 3 wide in front. And something that I've noticed right now is that the 24 of Durand is having some, the 24 of Durand is making some, having some issues with connection, and that might be stacking up the field behind them because they don't know where the 24 is on the racetrack.
It's the second time that has hit him here today. He had those issues as well around the halfway point of this race. Hopefully it settles out for him, as now it's going to be Jason Gracias. He's up the middle with Cam Caldwell in the 12. He'll take it 3 wide. Austin Grover tries the third lane. He's got Rodriguez with him. It's going to be double wide for second, 3 wide for the 4th spot with Valvano out in front.
I've noticed something that Jason Gracias has been using to his advantage. Goodness gracious. I don't think they realized that the 24 was on the inside of the racetrack. I thought that they might have... He was ghosting through and everyone was fanning out to try to avoid, and ironically almost ended up making contact with Durand as he was ducking to the back of the racetrack. But that's unfortunate for Durand as he's had connection issues, now forced to the back of the racetrack. But if it settles out, we might see him battle back. He's got 10 laps to go once they hit the stripe. On the apron, check out this. Cam Caldwell and Tristan Mayer trying to get the lead on the apron.
They've done a heck of a job repairing that 98 car, which was skewed off to the right after being involved in the latest caution. Did not take on the faster pair and might not need the faster pair. That thing still looks awfully racy as he's all over the back bumper of Cam Caldwell, trying to push him down the back straightaway. Kyle Lewis, though, he has found a fellow Camry and Gracias on the top.
Through the middle of the racetrack goes the 1, trying to push Kyle Lewis to the lead. He does briefly, but the inside of Caldwell and Mayer continue to have the advantage. And now the middle line. Oh, make that Mayer trying to look to the outside. Now the inside. Oh, there was a big block thrown by Caldwell. That could have ended in disaster, but we stay green as we get into the later stages of the last 10 laps set. They're starting to get racy, and right now it doesn't look like anybody has an advantage.
As the laps tick away, the moves are going to be more aggressive. The blocks are going to be bigger. I guarantee you that 12 is looking out the rearview mirror more than he is out the windshield. Now he has to look to driver's right. Here comes Lewis. He's got Gracias with him again. Now they've been able to pick up. Now it's going to be the 12 down on the apron. I think he might be getting out of dodge. That's going to turn the lead over to the 18 car. He's going to clear for the top spot. Gracias now to the outside of him. Grover is going to be his wingman on the bottom.
And as Grover, Gracias, and Lewis start to battle, they go 3 wide. Mayer on the outside line this time around, trying to get 3 wide for 3rd place. Will take the position. He's got a run going down the back straightaway with Durand has now found his way back from the back of the field back to the front. And now they go 3 wide for the lead of the race. But the difference is that this time around, Mayer doesn't have any help.
Now he's going to pick up some. Jason Gracias and Steven Doziak Jr. in that middle groove. 3 cars on the bottom, 3 cars in the middle, 3 cars on the top side. Right now, get the advantage off the corner to the 24 in terms of momentum. Let's see what they can do. Can they get him alongside the 18, who now going to throw a block 4 wide? Here comes Tristan Mayer trying to clear for the spot before they get to 3. He succeeds in doing so. Almost contact between himself and Grover as Durand goes to the point.
I cannot believe that they were able to make that work. Mayer was leaning doors with the 83 and the 18 coming trying to merge back onto the racetrack, but has been able to do it. And now to the inside of Durand goes the 98 around the apron. He's trying to get the momentum run through it, and I think he's got it, but the 34 of Robert Kenny, who now leads the race, 4 wide for second, and that's not going to work. There they go to the inside of the racetrack. That's Durand, that's Mayer, and company along with them.
Durand's able to save it. Gracias up into the wall. Doziak collected up. There is Kenny as we saw him go for the wild slide. That took out, I believe, the top 4, maybe top 5 that were up at the front of the field at the time. Now we got to go down through the list of who involved would have had their faster pair still available or not, or is that day done for any of these guys? At least right now, according to my count, I don't think anybody involved did not have a faster pair available. So these guys should all still be in the running in the closing stages of this race. But not only is this more than likely our biggest wreck up to this point, it also is going to set us up for a single-digit lap shootout. Only time will tell just how many laps we're going to get.
Indeed. So, I think what happened here, well, we know what happened on the racetrack. It was 4 wide, and that wasn't going to work with the amount of leaning that was going on. They had the room to make it 4 wide, but everyone tried to gravitate to the inside of the racetrack. And actually, the contact happened on the outside line first between Gracias and I believe that would have been Austin Grover, who for some reason has stayed out on the racetrack, but they make contact. 3 cars go darting off to the inside line. They're no longer a factor for the rest of the drivers, but then Gracias nails the outside wall along with taking out the 12, I believe, with Caldwell with him. But that wasn't Caldwell. That was the 55 make that. That was 55 make that of Doziak. And then more damage was sustained behind them to the drivers of Tellier. And I think that would have been the 7 of Gleason that was involved.
That's not good for Tellier. We're going to follow him here in this incident because he would have been one of the drivers involved that had already used the faster pair. Let's see just how much damage he sustains here. Oh, pretty good shot there to the right front. Oh, then came down and tagged the 38 of Vincent Valvano with the left front. We've seen cars that have the front end damage still be able to maintain speed up in the lead pack. There you see Garrett Gleason as well with the front end damage. Question is, though, I mean, are these just guys now that had used their faster pair at this point? All they're going to be left with is the opportunity to maybe push somebody to the win, because it's going to be like a parachute. If they get out in front, it's going to be like a parachute in terms of momentum, and it's just going to be a sitting duck for the rest of the drivers behind that have the pristine race cars.
Absolutely. They're going to be trying to do their best to stay up in the main pack of cars. And, all that talking about what happened to those drivers involved, that was just what happened on the top end. We haven't even covered what happened on the bottom end of the racetrack. And that was Robert Kenny sustaining the most contact as he hit the inside retaining wall. And then, add insult to injury, David Duran's momentum took him into more contact. But other than that, the other driver involved was, I believe, that was not Matthew Rodriguez. It was another silver car. That would have been Tristan Mayer. Tristan Mayer was also involved in that one. So he was just caught pushing, but not really much damage sustained on the 98. He does not have he does still have his faster pair available. The only drivers that haven't taken their faster pairs yet are the leader, Jason Shu, and Tristan Mayer, everyone else having done so. But that was, like you said, the biggest incident we've had all night long. Takes out almost the entire field in some shape. And now we've got a mixed bag of slightly wrecked to fully wrecked to pristine race cars that are going to finish out the race.
There's only 2 drivers in the field now that still have their faster pair available to them. Your current race leader, Jason Shu, is one. The other one is the driver you just talked about, Tristan Mayer. So he's, I think, of the mentality that we haven't seen our last caution, and we may be going into overtime here at Talladega. May use his faster pair then. We saw his car was awfully speedy, despite the fact he had suspension damage under the previous yellow. And wow, that's a late pull to pit road there for Matthew Rodriguez in the 57, who also could be of the assumption we might be looking at some overtime green-white checkers and might be making sure he'll have enough fuel for those extra laps. But everybody else has used their faster pair at some point in this race. Robert Kenny, who had already used his faster pair, Mike Tellier, who had already used his faster pair. They spent a lot of time on pit road. Kenny is down and away still in the lead lap. Mike Tellier, on the other hand, though, repairs continue to be done on his Toyota Camry. He just fell a lap down here under pacing. His day effectively could be done in terms of battling for this race win. We'll update on that. Maybe he'll catch himself a quick caution here, having overtime to pick up some spots. Also interesting, two races in 2 different weeks and completely different story up here at the front in the closing stages. Last week, started on the pole and won the race was Jason Gracias. This week, started dead last on the field and leading this field back to green, Jason Shu.
Indeed, he has worked his way through the field and is able to stay out of these incidences. I don't think we've called the 3-car in any of these so far. And because of that, he has, like you said, a faster pair at his disposal and still a very clean number 3 machine to finish out this event. So wouldn't be surprised if we see him as one of the favorites to win this race, just given the fact that he's still got a clean car now. And if he is involved in an incident, he still has a bit of a mulligan that he can pull to potentially get the win back. Jason Shu will line up the leader. Then it'll be Austin Grover to restart in second place. Tristan Mayer, despite being involved the last time out, was elected to stay out. His damage not enough to come down pit road, and he still had a competitive car. Will be lining up on the outside of row 2, followed by Cam Caldwell to the inside of row 2. Then we have Alvano, Duran, Doziak, Gleason, Rodriguez, Kenny Gracias. Lewis and Taylor still on pit road, will not take the start or the restart of this one, at least, as he is now fallen 1 lap down and potentially 2 laps down if the leaders get around. But safety truck is peeled off. Only 2 drivers on the outside line for this restart, it appears, as everyone else on the inside line. I don't think they want to start on the outside line this time.
Tristan Mayer, he is going to be pushing that 83, I guarantee you, to try and see if they can maintain their track positions, as they're going to have nobody to help them, at least here for the initial restart of this race. It's going to be 4 laps now to 3 laps left to go here, potentially at Talladega, as Jason Shu, Cam Caldwell, can those Chevys get hooked up? Look how Mayer, though, locked to the bumper of the 83. Can they make something happen on the top side? Here comes Valvano. Here comes David Durand. They're in a tandem of their own.
Trying to get the top side to work, squirreling around, not being able to hook up, but now they found each other around the outside as they've left Shu in the middle with no one to help them. Outside line gets the advantage. Austin Grover takes the lead of the race with Tristan Mayer behind him, and now Grover's going to dart down to the inside to try to get to the inside line, and he does, right in front of Caldwell, give the advantage to the 83 team.
With no out of bounds here at Talladega, it's time to throw some blocks. Austin Grover looking back at the 12 of Cam Caldwell. Also looking at the runs generating. Here comes Rodriguez and Gracias. We've seen this before. We're going to see it again. Coming to 2 to go.
Rodriguez with a run. He will lead at the line. Gracias pushing it. We'd almost written them off as too far away to maybe make a run, but now 2-car tandem and a whale of a lead going down to the inside. Can anybody have a 2-car tandem like we've seen so far with the 2 of these?
How long can they stay locked up, as well as the question? The water temps have got to be rising on the Jason Gracias machine. How committed is he going to be to the back bumper of that 57? When's he going to have to dart out of line? You can see they got a big run and got out in front by a good margin. All of a sudden, though, Grover, Caldwell, they're going to hook up, and they've got momentum through 3 and 4.
On the outside line, trying to carry the momentum around the top side of the racetrack, but now to the inside, here comes the 98.
Oh, not clear. Wow.
To the inside goes Rodriguez, and there he goes. Everyone hitting the outside line. Caution will fly. We will have an overtime, but 2 drivers, 3 drivers, 4 drivers scattering around the outside of the make that the front straightaway.
1 car went airborne after hitting the wall. I think it might have been the 12 of Caldwell. There is what remains of last week's winner, Jason Gracias. Matthew Rodriguez all torn up. Garrett Gleason appears to have been involved as well. Big hits taken here. Oh, David Durand in the 24, second straight week that hard luck hits him in the closing stages of the race. Overtime attempt number 1 coming up. Let's go back to just before receiving the white flag of what brought out the 6th caution of the day.
They were racing extremely hard, trying to get this lead of the race, and then you saw that Matthew Rodriguez tried to dart to the outside to stop the advances of the 83 team, but could not do it. Had to dart quickly back to the inside line, and Gracias gave him a bump, went down to the apron, and then I think it was actually Mayer that made the initial contact that sent Gracias around, and that sent him into Rodriguez.
Big hits there for the 12 of Cam Caldwell. think you're absolutely right. I thought for a brief moment, just the camera angle that we had, that maybe Rodriguez came back up the track and wasn't clear on the one, but I think you're absolutely right. I think there was some contact from Mayer to the back of Gracias that hooked him down into the 57, and I don't think there was a single driver involved in that one that still had their fast repair intact. So these are going to be a bunch of wounded soldiers trying to limp those machines home to whatever finishes they can possibly get.
Yeah, it's bad news for these drivers because Matthew Rodriguez and Jason Gracias especially, because they had worked on making the run work earlier in the race when they tried the two-car tandem practice, and it worked out phenomenally. But then everyone else kind of got wise to it. I think they might have showed their hand just a bit too early, but I'd call this a racing incident. But this happened. If we had taken the check, or if we had taken the white flag rather, then that would have been it. We would have crowned a winner by now, but we still have a lot of racing to go and a lot of wounded cars sitting on pit road at the moment, but everyone has come down the pit road to try and get any damage that they have repaired. Austin Grover will be the leader. Make that... well, I don't know. He's in front of the safety truck. Not sure.
He's waiting for the safety truck. I think the big issue right here was the timing of that yellow, because they had to make an entire circuit around to be able to then pick up the pace truck with the timing of that yellow, since it was so close to the start-finish line. So he's got to pick up the pace car now, and then we should have everybody lined up where they need to be.
So that being said, there goes the truck on by, the lead truck, and Grover will fall into line. So it'll be Grover, Valvano, and Lewis, your top three. And out of these drivers, the ones that are still on pit road were the ones involved: Gracias, Caldwell, Rodriguez, and Gleason having sustained the most damage. Caldwell getting airborne after getting stuck in the safer barrier, getting shot, or deposited rather, to the inside of the racetrack. Gracias again was the one that got hooked. Matthew Rodriguez, the second driver that got hooked, and then Garrett Gleason, an innocent bystander that found himself involved. David Duran has stayed out on the racetrack despite backing into the inside retaining wall. He'll be restarting 8th place unless things change. And then Tristan Mayer, the one who got into the one machine initially to chain reaction this wreck, will be restarting in the 5th spot according to my telemetry. But Seth, we're getting set up for a first attempt at a green-white checker. What are we going to see? Do you think that we're going to have a lap or so of setting everyone up before we get to the line, and then we're going to go all out? Or are we just going to go all out from green flag?
Based on what I've seen on these past restarts, I don't even think you need that full lap to set somebody up. I think you just need that half lap to get up to full speed down the back straightaway and then make your move into 3 and 4. So will they get back to the white flag this time around? I'm not certain. There's only, at least by my count, potentially 7, maybe 8 cars that are going to be up to speed. Everybody else is either still sitting on pit road getting damage repaired or spent over a minute and a half in their respective stalls. So I think that their chances of being a factor in this race is effectively done. And as we know at the Superspeedways, the smaller the field gets, the closer we get to the end of the race and closer to that checkered flag, the less likely it is that caution is going to come out. So these guys might be able to make it around to that white flag, but we're going to have to wait and see.
So as we get them set up, everyone lining double file to set this first attempt at a green-white checkered underway. Again, we have gone through the top 3. Everyone behind them will be Robert Kenny, Steven Doziak, Jason Schuch, David Duran, and Tristan Mayer. Those are the top 8. Those are the only drivers that would have their cars somewhat up to speed. Everyone behind, who are now coming back out on the racetrack, have damaged machines, that being Garrett Gleason, Matthew Rodriguez, Jason Gracias, and Cam Caldwell, which is still sitting on pit road. Mike Tellier has not left the pit lane either. The damage too much for the 97 crew. That car has not officially retired from the event, but has effectively retired from the event as we still pace around. Seth, I'm excited to see what's happening because we've got one car lining up second place that's got some very, very intense damage on the back end of his car. That would be the 38 of Valvano, but it doesn't seem like it's mattered too much this event.
No, I mean, we've got a lot of wounded cars up here. Robert Kenny's got that damage visibly on the left front. We know that Tristan Mayer's got some damage he's been dealing with. Kyle Lewis, I think, got a little piece of the incident that brought the 5th caution. So all these drivers are dealing with a little bit of aero sensitivity here, but I don't think they're going to care a lick. They're going to be pushing, they're going to be shoving, they're going to be tandeming, doing everything they can to get back to the white flag and then settle out for this checkers. Grover up through the gears. That may have been too good a restart for the 83 as he's got 2-3 car lengths back to Kenny. Tristan Mayer now going to go for 2nd place. It's going to be the 38 and the 34 on the bottom that are going to have a big run on the 83 out of turn 2.
Mayer trying to side draft all of he can to keep the pace up. The good news is it's on a restart. No one's really been able to make the draft work so far, and he will stay in line. Now they've caught up to Grover. Grover elects the inside line to make his stand. We'll get a push from Robert Kenny. On the outside line, though, here comes Mayer trying to. It was going to be, I think it was going to be Lewis, but then he got left out to dry, and now it's going to be Mayer with some help.
And he's got David Durand in tow, who was shooting up the middle. Mayer saw that momentum, jumped in front of him. Right now, though, it's a battle for 2nd. Now it's the battle for the lead. Side drafting. Mayer to the top, alongside Austin Grover. Can they get back to the white? Yes, they will. Next flag's going to end the race as Mayer edges ahead by half a car length. He clears into 1. He leaves Durand out to dry. Grover does not want to finish runner-up 2 weeks in a row. What can he do with the 98 down the back straightaway?
Right now, Grover, what he has to do is figure out how to get around. Remember, there is no apron rule, so he's going to try and duck to the inside. And now he's gotten turned. Mayer's gotten turned down the back straightaway. It's pandemonium going down the back straightaway.
Heading the apron. He's got Valvano. Is there room?
Oh, Durand around.
Nobody got him. Nobody hit him. 3 wide for the lead.
And
now
the 18, Lewis in the wall. Now the 83 of Grover gets in front. It's Kenny and Grover 1st and 2nd again on the outside line. Here comes the 38 with a stand. Valvano's got help. The inside of Grover's got help. 4 wide, 3 wide at the line, and I think
Valvano by a splitter. Middle line, Vincent Valvano. I'm waiting on that telemetry. 15 one-thousandths of a second.
You couldn't have scripted that finish if you had tried to.
So far this season, closest finish. Closer than last week's 36 one-thousandths between Gracias and Grover. And Valvano, let's bear in mind, Valvano was 3rd place coming out of turn 4. All that generated on the front straightaway.
All he had to do was keep the car straight. There was a number of times where it looked like that he would have been involved in a wreck. That incident where the 24 got loose on the high side and then swept in front of everybody, he was able to keep speed enough and he had momentum that he didn't take anybody out. That was incredible in and of itself, but Valvano would have been the first recipient of all that and then sticks his car on the inside of the racetrack and is able to keep the lead of the race. I have no idea how he got away with it, but he did give the win to Vincent Valvano, and here comes Rodriguez.
Man.
He's trying to try out for the the Olympic curling team.
Vincent Valvano, let's bear in mind as well, probably would not have been able to have pulled off that move if he didn't have somebody that was committed to him and giving him draft through the tri-oval. Credit to Jason Shu in the 3 because he was the one that jumped out there to the outside when Valvano made the move. That gave the 38 even more momentum. Shu's going to finish in 2nd place, but sometimes in order to win at the Superspeedways, you got to have someone committed to you, and Shu was that to Valvano's win here tonight.
Indeed, we were wondering what was going to happen if drivers tried to stay together, and I think we got our answer is that it pushed somebody to the lead of the race and kept them out there. So, man, that finish was so close. So much was happening. We ended up with only 3 or 4 drivers at the end of the race that was even close enough to try and take the win away. And something that I also noticed was that throughout everything that happened on the last lap, Valvano was able to not only be able to avoid the incidents, but he was able to put his car in a position where even if the spinning machines that were running in front of him, no matter what, he would have been able to at least let off the throttle and be able to avoid it. That's something that some of these other drivers couldn't say. Now, everyone was able to avoid Duran, but we saw going down the back straightaway, pandemonium happening when the 98 of Mayer got spun off the nose of I believe that would have been, I think it was Grover that he got spun off of. And then we saw everything else that unfolded. Valvano was able to avoid it, and he did it with one of the more damaged cars of the group. So doesn't mean just because you have a damaged race car doesn't mean that you can't win the race.
Just continuing to see how close this finish was. Not only was it 15 1,000ths between first and second, 28 1,000ths from first to third, and less than a hundredth of a second, 9 100ths of a second, I believe it was. No, correction, 9,000ths of a second. No, 90 thousandths of a second between first and fourth place with Robert Kenny.
Absolute incredible. Absolute. We're not going to be able to really put into words how this finish might have ended because there's no way you could have scripted a finish like this. It was so intense all the way down to the last lap. That was what was it? Cup Series 2011 Talladega, where they went 4 wide and finished the race. This had similar energy at the end of the race, and it is incredible. Now, whew, I'm speechless at the end of this one. That took a lot out.
You think about the fact too that no out of bounds rule. I mean, that just kind of threw an X factor in there for these drivers as well. Normally you come to Talladega with the mentality, okay, all I have to do is block down to the double yellow line. That wasn't the case, and I think that's, a big reason why we ended up seeing the 98 get spun on the back straightaway, because he didn't have to block 4 lanes. He had to block about 6 lanes down the back straightaway, and there's no guarantee you're going to be down there in front of the car trying to make a move before they get to your left or right rear quarter panel. So boy, that definitely had whoever was out in front in the closing stage of this race, gave them an awful lot to think about. But here are the finishing results. How about the fact that 4 of the drivers up in the top 3 are making their first starts of the season here in the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series? Valvano, the winner, Shu, the runner-up finisher, and Robert Kenny, the 4th place finisher. And what a start to the year there for Austin Grover. Back-to-back podium finishes, 2nd last week at Daytona, and 3rd place here tonight, almost pulling off the victory yet again.
If Robert Kenny had gotten to his back, or the back side of that car a little bit earlier, he might have been able to push him to victory, because he had a run. He just didn't have enough time to pull it off, but it's the only 2-car 10 we had at the end of the race. But again, and give credit to the outside line as well. Jason Shu holding it on the outside line. That is impressive in itself, because that car started dead last in the field, and to my knowledge, he used one fast repair tonight, but he kept that car as clean as he possibly could. I think he was the car that sustained the least amount of damage tonight, and he has a 2nd place to show for it. Almost a win had Valvano not had such a wicked run going through the tri-oval, but all credit where credit's due. And Robert Kenny was able to hold on for 4th place as well, pushing the 83 of Grover, trying to get the win. So all around, we had a lot of individual storylines going around on that last lap. So awesome to see these 4, the best of the rest.
David Duran got a little bit better luck here in the closing stage at Dega. He gets a top 5 in 5th. Gracias, his bid to go 2 for 2, comes up just short as he'll be 6th. Rodriguez, Lewis, Gleason, and Tristan Mayer. Boy, you talk about Austin Grover having a great start to his year. Tristan Mayer, this has not been the start he wanted. 2 finishes now of 11th and 10th in the first 2 races as we look at the rest of the finishing results for this race. And going back there to Jason Shu in the 3, it's still early on in the season, and the 2 things that you can do to get the most bonus points, 10 bonus points in a race, either lead the most laps or gain the most positions, with starting in dead last, finishing 2nd place. That's 10 bonus points there for the debuting number 3.
That's a lot of points he's going to carry over. Now, he does not have the advantage of the previous points he would have gotten at Daytona, but adding that, and if he makes consistent starts here on out, even though he's a race down, he still might have a chance to make a dent into the points lead. So have to keep an eye on the progress of Jason Shu. Everyone tonight with some good points finishes up in the top 5. You got David Duran, who will take home some valuable points. You've got Valvano, obviously, with the win, will take away some points. And he didn't start too far up at the front of the field. He was another one of those drivers that had a pretty low starting position, so he'll take away some bonus points as well. Jason Shu, we mentioned his what the amount of points he'll take in, and so too Austin Grover. He had a decent starting position, but with this third place, will be able to add on to the points that he had coming in from Daytona.
Points are going to be really close as well heading into next week's race at iRacing Superspeedway, just based on the fact that both Jason Gracias and Cam Caldwell didn't get quite the performances they were looking for. Gracias in 6th and Caldwell outside the top 10 in the 12th position. But Grover finishing up there in 2nd place. Gracias getting the pole position, which gets you 5 bonus points. And I think, I'm not 100% certain, but I think Cam Caldwell might have led the most laps, so that's 10 bonus points. Those 3 came into this race separated by 20 points, first back to third. With where they all finished, the bonus points they may have accrued, we could end up having, single-digit interval between the top 3 potentially heading into next week. And we know the positions are close on the racetrack. Just imagine the calculations you have to do when you're on the racetrack and know that you are that close to a driver in the point standings as well.
Absolutely. So a lot of storylines going into our next race. Again, only a 9 race season, so plenty. Well, not really plenty of time, but definitely some chances to make up some points in the next after this one. The next 7 races to go, and iRacing Super Speedway. Uh, Definitely one of the more niche tracks that we're going to go to this season. So it's going to be fun to watch how these drivers attempt to tackle that racetrack. I think we also got Coca-Cola on the schedule, which would, if we were under a normal season with Coca-Cola not included, this track would be one of the longest tracks, but Coca-Cola surpasses that by about a mile or two.
Yeah, Coca-Cola to NR is iRacing Superspeedway to iRacing, so actually it's one and the same.
Well, one and the
Whenever
same.
we're
So
going to next week, and gonna be interesting to see how the drivers are going to tackle that racetrack as well. They had to tackle Talladega here tonight. Let's talk with some of our podium finishers here this evening. Let's kick things off with tonight's 3rd place finisher, Austin Grover. Austin, Anthony, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, how's it going, guys?
Going good, man. What a way to get your season started off. Back-to-back podium finishes. We're kind of speculating up here, maybe the points leader heading to iRacing Superspeedway next week, but man, you had that race lead there heading into turn 3. What'd you have to do to keep those guys in your rearview mirror? Because it got awfully close there once you guys got out of the tri-oval.
Yeah, about the only thing I could have done is aggressive blocking. I know the 24 got spun in front of me there coming through 3 and 4. That kind of freaked me out. I slid up. I got into Kyle a little bit and kind of made some mayhem happen there on the last lap, which I feel horrible about for both him and Tristan, actually. I got into Tristan going down the backstretch, and I know it's last lap, super speedway racing. It's going to be close. It's going to be hard. Um, I feel horrible for getting into those guys, and I do want to apologize to both of them. That being said, yeah, 2 top 3 finishes, a 2nd and a 3rd, the first 2 races of the year. I'm looking forward to next week to see what happens at iRacing.
it was an intense race tonight. We saw a lot of action throughout the entire event, and especially in the closing stages of the event. Uh, Throughout the race, we saw some moves being made and some cars that looked like they were on the edge of out of control. How were the driving conditions tonight? It certainly didn't seem like these cars wanted to go anywhere that the driver wanted them to.
Yeah, it felt like I don't know how to describe it. It almost just felt like the steering was kind of just sloppy. You would turn and there'd be a slight delay in the reaction of the car. It felt like you had a little bit of a slower reaction time from the wheel than what you were inputting for it to do. That being said, everyone, once we figured it out, did great at controlling the cars, and we just had a heck of a lot of fun. Like I had a blast.
We saw this finish come down to a matter of inches, but in honesty, it actually was a matter of feet as well, with the timing of that last caution sending us into overtime. I don't think you were any more than 10 car lengths away from that start finish line when the caution came out. I mean, what was the range of emotions there thinking, man, if we'd just gotten to that line, then this thing would have ended under yellow and I would have been taking the checkered flag.
I was I was slightly disappointed to say the least. Yeah, and I can't emphasize that wreck enough. I've seen the replay a couple times now, and literally they just barely grazed my back bumper as the wreck happened. So I honestly think if it would have happened probably 2 feet later, based on when the caution came out, we would have wound up cruising under the white and just taking the checkers.
Still, as mentioned, a great start to the year for you, Austin. The points are in, 5 points between you and Jason Gracias for that points lead. So that should be a fun one to watch when you guys take to iRacing Superspeedway next week. We'll see if you can go a perfect 3 for 3 and finish up at the podium. You finish second, you finish third. Maybe you can get that win next week as well and finish in all 3 of the podium spots. So congratulations on another solid outing here tonight at Talladega. We're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
Yeah, just want to thank TNR for putting together a great series. Of course, FRN for helping us get this show on the road. Matthew Rodriguez for uh, putting up for the show, and of course, you guys' broadcasts are amazing. All in all, I just want to thank everyone, and once again, as I have in weeks past, I want to thank my fiance for actually letting me run this series and not yelling at me. So yeah, thanks guys, and hopefully we have a good showing next week.
That's Austin Grover, third place here tonight in the Blame Shelley Insurance 150 at Talladega Superspeedway. Congratulations once again, Austin. Best of luck next week at iRacing.
Thanks, guys.
And let's see if we can get the guy who started this race from last in his debut, brings it home in second place, just 51 thousandths short of the checkered flag, Jason Shue. Jason, Anthony, and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Well, man, I'll tell you what. Anthony alluded to this, and I completely agree with him. In terms of a driver that did a great job of keeping his car clean and preserved for the end of this race, it would definitely have to go to you. Up there at the end, had a shot at that victory. What little more did you need to be able to get the 38 at the start-finish line? Because we saw that you moved up there with him, but then you got a heck of a toe on him as well, and almost were able to edge him out.
Yeah, almost had him. I think I needed one more lap. I probably could have won it.
Yeah, you certainly were able to use that 3 machine to your advantage. And now on the outside line, it seemed to be where you like to run the most. We saw throughout the event that drivers were trying the outside, the middle, and the low side. Uh, Also, the 2-car tandem became a factor early or late in the second half of the race, I should say. So, were you thinking about maybe hooking up with somebody and trying to propel your way through the front of the field? Because we saw a couple of drivers, mainly Rodriguez and Gracias, that were able to really pull that off extremely well for the time until some other instances happened. But what was your strategy going into the final half of the race?
I was just going to ride around the bottom for now and see what happened. And you could get real good runs on the top side.
Jason, one thing that we noticed were it seemed like didn't matter where you were in the field, trouble could break out. We saw Rex take place up as high as second place. We saw Rex take place back in the pack. Starting in the rear of the field, I mean, was that the safe place for you to be, or did you think that maybe getting up to the front might be the safer place to be? I mean, how do you kind of judge where the eye of the storm is when you're in a field like this at Talladega?
Yeah, it's definitely safer riding around the back until towards the end. Then you just got to go for it with 3 to go and hope you can miss the wrecks.
Well, great debut for you here tonight. From the back to the front, second place here tonight. Obviously raking in a lot of bonus points as well with picking up the most spots here in this race. I believe that the point stands currently have you sitting 6th right now, so well done on that, and we're looking forward to seeing what you're able to do when we get to iRacing Superspeedway next week. We're now going to hand the mic over to you, let you thank some sponsors and do some shout-outs.
All right, well, thanks. I want to thank FRN for the broadcasts, my sponsors, Firehouse Grill, Pecky's Auto Body, Lewistown Car Wash, and Larry's Lawnmower Repair Shop. And I want to thank Jason Freeman for getting me into iRacing and Gleason and everybody I race with. It's all fun.
Jason Shue, P2, here today at Talladega Superspeedway in his debut. Once again, congratulations, Jason, and best of luck next week.
All right, thanks.
And another driver that made his debut here tonight is also going to make his debut in Victory Lane. Let's talk with Vincent Valvano. Hey, Vincent, Anthony, and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yeah, gotcha. Sorry about that.
Hey, no problem, man. I mean, obviously, got to take a moment to catch your breath after that exciting finish. 15 one thousandths of a second. You made it through all that mayhem on the final lap coming around to the checkers, but we saw that when you stepped out, you had the momentum, but it didn't seem like quite enough to get alongside of that 83. Did the three jumping up behind you get you that extra little edge you needed, or do you think you still would have barely been able to edge them out there at the start finish line?
Sure, it was close. I did not think I was going to carry enough speed at the end, but luckily I did.
That you had just enough to edge out the three drivers behind you. Now, when you saw the chaos unfolding in front of you on the last lap, we saw that Tristan Mayer was it one of the ones that spun around, and then in front we saw the 24 of Durand also go around. What were you thinking about during that stage? Were you just planning to keep your foot in the throttle and see what happened, and then, or were you just trying to kind of tiptoe your way through and then hope that you had the momentum to get all the way to the finish?
I I did hesitate just a little bit, and then I said, "No, I'm just going to go for it," and put the pedal to the metal. I had like a guardian protecting me through the race. I know I got in a couple accidents, and I did use the fast repair, but at the end, I got lucky.
Yeah, let's talk about that fast repair because we saw a number of drivers get involved in some earlier incidents, get some early damage, and not take the fast repair on, kind of preserving it for the end of the race. Ended up seeing a couple of cautions late. So, how difficult was it to kind of strategize of which caution was the right time to take that fast repair on?
I think that I pit 2 times before I used my, fast repair. I think I used the fast repair on, with, 7 laps left, and it just worked out perfect. I tried to save it as long as possible. I was hoping I didn't use it too soon with 7 laps left, but I was able to keep the car clean and, like I said, got lucky and had a blast.
Well, I'll tell you what, no doubt about it. Next week, when we get to iRacing Superspeedway, we're going to be keeping an eye on that 38 car because it looked fast here tonight and obviously was fast picking up this victory. Also, with it being early on in the season and getting those bonus points, you're going to be heading into next week fourth in the point standings. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see if you can get yourself up there to the points lead as well. We're now going to turn the mic over to you, Vincent. Let you do some victory lane. Thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
Oh, big shout out and thank you to, FNR, you guys in the broadcast, and all the guys, and to my teammates, and a big shout to Garrett for getting into league, and Matt for running the league. Did a great job. Next week, I hope to get a nice paint scheme on, and I can't wait for iRacing Superspeedway.
That's Vincent Valvano. He's your winner here tonight by 15 one thousandths of a second at Talladega Superspeedway. Once again, congratulations on a great job there, Vincent. Thanks for giving us that exciting photo finish. Go and enjoy that win.
Thank you very much, guys. Had a blast.
And again, as mentioned, the point standings with only 2 races under our belts here in the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series, they are really, really close between the top 2. 5 points, Jason Gracias over Austin Grover. The rest of the competition, they're not out of it either, though. David Durand, who for the second straight week leads the most laps, he is 40 points back in the third position. 42 points back is Vincent Valvano, tonight's winner. Cam Caldwell is fifth. He's 43 points back and 47 points back after getting those 10 bonus points for working his way up through the field tonight. Sixth in the standings, Jason Shu. While that might, under normal circumstances, seem like a pretty big mountain to climb, 47 points can be made up in the span of one race.
Absolutely, it's going to be a tight points battle all the way through to the end of the season. A very brief season that these drivers have to run. Only 9 races, 2 down, 7 to go. So have to watch and see what happens with the rest of the season. But that being said, we also see drivers making their debuts that will sometimes surprise you. Again, that 3 machine was able to really show us some top speed. And if he comes in and races the rest of the season, we could see him a viable competitor for the championship. So you're never out of it, no matter when you start. And fortunately for him, he did start only 1 race removed. So he does have that 1 race he'll have to make up, but that could be fairly easily made up.
Talked about Austin Grover finishing second and third in the first 2 races, looking for that victory. Well, he drives a Chevrolet. So far in the first 2 races, it's been a Camry and a Mustang that have gone to victory lane. So can Chevy break into the winners column next week at iRacing Superspeedway? We're going to have to wait and see. But Anthony, has been a great one here today at Talladega. We knew that they were going to have a lot of space to work with. They definitely did. They actually used more space than we originally knew with being able to go down below that yellow line. But man, they did a great job of keeping it clean and green for a good portion of this race. An exciting finish at the end. That's what Superspeedway racing is all about. Appreciate you joining me with it.
Absolutely. It's fun to get back into Superspeedway racing, and we got a lot more to go and a really fun season to carry out. So cannot wait till next week when we get to see these guys take on iRacing.
And if you guys haven't had your fill of racing here tonight, be sure to join us in about 40 minutes because at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be bringing you the season opener for the 2021 Papega Car Racing season at the road course of Road America. That should be a good one. Anthony and I will be on the call for that one as well. So we're doubling down here tonight on this Sunday evening. Be sure to join us for that one as, again, congratulations to Vincent Valvano, your winner here tonight in the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series at Talladega Superspeedway. For Anthony McCurry, I'm Seth Cole. We'll see you guys in about 40 minutes here as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.